Hi, my name is Jean Gutierrez, and I'm the program director of a Master of Science in Dietetic internship program at the University of Texas Medical Branch. And the purpose of this video is to just give you some tips based on my experience for getting into clinical healthcare programs. So first of all, it's really important to choose programs that match your qualifications. Most programs will have information about the average GPA, GRE score, other standardized test scores on their website, or they can have that information available for you if you ask. You want to make sure your profile generally matches up with the average class statistics. If your information is, if your scores are much below that, then you're going to need to compensate with some other experience or qualification. So some programs will let you know too if there are other qualifications that they really value. For example, in my program, we really value research experience because we have a research emphasis. So students can have a little bit lower numbers, but if they have good research experience, that'll help make up for that. So you can only know that information by kind of investigating each program, contacting admissions directors or program directors to find out what they're looking for. But I would say commonly students don't match or don't get into programs because maybe they're aiming too high for the numbers that they have. So make sure that you're aligning your qualifications with the programs you're applying to. When choosing programs, really try to focus on their emphasis areas if they can teach you in certain specialties. For example, ours is research. We also have a lot of rotations in pediatrics that maybe other universities don't have. So that's a special emphasis area. That's a good reason to pick a program. Special rotations that they have, other educational opportunities. Those are the kinds of things you should be looking for when you're looking for programs. Things that you should emphasize less are the specific city that it's in, climate, things like that. They may seem really important, but you're only going to be in this program for a couple of years or maybe several years, and you can stick out maybe in an area you don't like that much to get the educational experience you're looking for. If you do also have some lower numbers, some areas that may be considered less desirable by some people, maybe areas that are colder or maybe more rural areas, they might not have as many applicants and you might stand a better chance of getting in. Now, some tips for your personal statement. Avoid cliches throughout your personal statement and avoid overused quotes that don't mean anything to you. We tend to see a lot of the same quotes, and it seems like maybe applicants are getting advice to include quotes, but it doesn't really do anything for your application. So, if you really live by a quote, by all means include it. Otherwise, you don't need to include that. I also feel sometimes that applicants seem as though they're forcing a personal story into the statement. And in my opinion, that doesn't really help the statement if it's not coming from a place of wanting to authentically share it and kind of incorporating it in a really effective way. I think it's difficult to do. Some people really do have great stories that they tell, and that's if you feel like it's something you really want to do, then it's go ahead and try that. If you don't want to do that, don't feel pressured like you have to do that. It's okay to just kind of give a simple explanation of why you went into the field and then jump into the things that you can offer for their program or the experiences that you have. Sometimes applicants will disclose weaknesses on their applications that they don't need to tell me about and don't help their application. So I know for our field, the application kind of has some questions that they want the applicants to answer. For my program, we don't even want the applicants to focus on those questions, but one of the questions is, detail some weaknesses, something about weaknesses. And that section is really to explain away really obvious weaknesses in your application. For example, if you had a rough freshman year, this is a good time to explain why why you've changed or what happened during that time period and how it's not a representation of who you really are and how they can expect you to perform in the program. So definitely explaining low test scores or explaining some poor grades is appropriate, but it's not a good idea to bring up the fact that you're anxious about talking to patients. Like that's something we'll deal with once the student gets here. don't tell anyone that if you don't have to. I definitely suggest tailoring your statement to each program if your application system allows that. I know ours does. Our central application system, you can give a personal statement to each program. And so you should be, throughout the statement, making that statement tailored for each program to show your genuine interest and the fact that you've really looked into the programs and thought about the programs you were applying to. Clinical programs get way more qualified applications than students we can actually accept. So we are not just looking for applicants to be qualified, we're also looking for them to really have taken a serious interest in our program and have really strong reasons for applying in the first place. So what skills can you offer that program that are going to enhance the student body, maybe make you better interacting with the patients in that area? For example, I'm in Southeast Texas. We have a large Spanish-speaking population. If a student speaks Spanish or has experience working with that population, it's a strength for our program. So bringing that up in a personal statement is really good. If there are specific training opportunities and rotations that you're really excited about for that program, include that in your statement. It's showing that you really have a genuine interest in that program, that you're a good fit, and that you're going to be able to gain all the benefits that that program has to offer. Definitely have someone else read your personal statement. It's personal, so it's, it's tough to share sometimes, but you do want another pair of eyes on it just to give you feedback, to maybe catch little typos and stuff, because sometimes with our own work, it's tough to see those things. If you can find maybe a dietitian or someone who reviews applications routinely to look at it, that would be great. If you can't, anyone else, a peer or a parent or anyone who can just look at it and give you some basic feedback will be good. Now some tips for letters. Letters are all about the relationships you've already built. So by the time you need to ask for letters, it should be really obvious to you who you're going to ask, because you know who's going to write you a glowing recommendation and who's going to be your advocate for getting into programs. That is what you're looking for. So the purpose of letters from a person who's on an admissions committee perspective is that we're just looking for people who are intelligent, passionate, hardworking, coachable, and easygoing. So you want your supervisors, professors, whoever's writing that letter for you to indicate these traits in the letter and give specific examples of, just showing how you have these traits. What is especially important is the coachable and easygoing personality. We all have different personalities, and some of us are more intense than others, but we need students who are coachable. It's really difficult to deal with arrogant students who can't take feedback. So the more letters you can have that indicate how proactive you are and how you're able to take feedback and learn from it, that is going to be a really strong letter for you. Vague letters are almost as bad as negative letters, and we do get negative letters sometimes. Clearly, no applicant chooses someone they think is going to write a negative letter, but I've had applicants that have like all negative letters. So that's clearly bad, but a vague letter is almost as bad because we don't know if that person just doesn't know you or if that person is trying to avoid writing something bad. So generic and vague letters are not going to do you any good. If you want to get more specificity in your letters, sometimes you remember what you did more than the person who's writing the letter. So after you ask them to write the letter and they agree, I think it's okay to send them some bullets, like just letting them know, hey, these are the types of programs I'm applying to. Maybe they all have like pediatric specialties or something like that. And so the person can incorporate that little bit of information into their letter, because their one letter is going to go to everyone usually. And then you can also give them some reminders of the work you did together or what your project was about in class, and tie it into the programs you're applying to for them. So make those connections for them. and just make the work of writing the letter easier. So it's different people prefer this to different extents. By the time you're a professional, if you're applying for grants and things like that, you might actually be asked to draft letters for people. That would probably offend some of your professors and supervisors at the younger stages or earlier stages of your career. So, but I think providing some simple reminders of how you work together and how that ties into the programs you're applying to is a helpful thing. So for letters, you need to build relationships early. For some people who are watching this, it might be a little too late, but it's never completely too late. So if you're earlier in your college career, definitely look into volunteering in a professor's lab for research or with a clinician in your field. Build those relationships. Definitely look into your local professional organizations for your field. Join those as a student member, volunteer for student positions, and volunteer at events. Meeting other professionals at events, they're going to be able to give you tips about applying to programs, about where, jobs that come up, tips for finding programs that are going to be good for you. And you might even get to know them well enough that they can write you a letter. So that's going to be really helpful. If your campus has a professional group related to your profession, you should join that and maybe get a leadership position in that group. Putting volunteer hours and hours into student groups that relate to your profession is a lot more impressive on a resume than, say, any sorority or fraternity work you've done. Sometimes sororities and fraternities do really nice charity work and things like that, but if it's not related to the profession, it doesn't really strengthen your application as much as profession-related volunteer work will. So here's an example of a non-specific letter that would really hurt an application. This is a real letter I've gotten on an application. So you can see most of these letters have a check boxes that the person has to check, and then you have to fill in some text. So you can see here all the check boxes are in the same area basically, and then blank was a student in my class. She performed well on assignments and exams. Okay, this is textbook terrible letter. Most people will have a checks kind of, they might all lean to the left, but the student will be great at some things and, less great at other things. And we kind of expect to see some variability there. Sometimes they really are all outstanding, and that's okay too. But that has to be accompanied by a specific, really awesome letter for it to be believable. So what you're looking for is a legitimate letter that has real paragraphs and lots of specific information about you, and not this vague, ridiculous stuff. In order to avoid these vague letters, you should definitely contact your prospective letter writers at least a month in advance, if not 2 months in advance. You want to give this person ample time to write the letters. Most application systems will let you know if the person has written the letter or not. So if your letters aren't in, it's okay 2 weeks out to send a gentle reminder, send those bullets again, and ask at that point if they're still able to, and then have backup people kind of in the back of your mind if you need to find someone else. Okay, some tips for Skype interviews. We do Skype interviews in our program. Some programs will have you do an initial video that you submit. Other programs just do phone interviews. Some other programs will have you go in person for the interview. So for any type of interview where they're going to see you, you want to dress professionally and you cannot overdo it. So it is totally great to wear basically something that incorporates a jacket. So for men, tie, jacket. For women, a pant or skirt suit. You can't overdo it. You definitely want it to be conservative, neutral, not be distracting, but look very professional. For women, also very good to have, your hair styled if it's shorter, or back if it's long, or definitely at least, nicely styled. Be definitely mindful of your background. I've seen all kinds of crazy backgrounds in the Skype interviews. You know, there's messy dorm rooms. There's, you know, a fan overhead that's like making the room look like a disco ball is in there. Barking dogs in the hallway that are really distracting. So you want a clean, neutral background. A lot of schools will have like interview rooms that you can sign out and use for your Skype interviews. So definitely that would be a good option. You should look into that if you anticipate that you're going to have any like video call interviews. Definitely make sure you have a good internet connection. You know, we hardwire our computer here into the, you know, hardwired internet. So if there's a technical glitch, we suspect it's the applicant and not us. If you have to use Wi-Fi, make sure it's a good, strong connection that will maintain the video the whole time. Avoid using your phone for the video call. The reason is, you know, people make mistakes with their notifications coming up as the interview is going on. So there have been a couple of times and it's like ding, 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 all like, you know, coming up during the interview, and it's like super awkward. And a lot of times the applicant just tries to like continue through the interview with all these crazy notifications going off. Definitely in advance, I would just have your phone off and then try to use a computer that's not going to have any notifications coming up for the Skype interview. If you need to use like an iPad or a phone or something, make sure you're going into your settings and making sure nothing will like make noise like that while you're actually doing your video session. Be familiar with the resources the program has online. We post our student handbook. We have all kinds of information about our rotation sites. We have a lot of information about our program just on the website. So in advance of any interviews, you want to make sure you go on the website and kind of learn about as much that the program has available so that you can incorporate your experience with the information that's out there with that program into almost every question. It's going to show, again, a lot of specificity that you really thought about it, that you're really serious about that program. And then when it comes time for you to ask any questions you have about the program, you can ask about things that are very specific and make you look really thoughtful. Definitely test out your connection and test out Skype or whatever service the program is using in advance if you can. You want to make sure that your angle is good, that the connection is flowing smoothly, and that it'll work out. Time zones. I've had applicants screw this up a few times. So you want to make sure if you're in a different time zone than the school you're applying to, and it's a video call or a phone call, that you have the time right. If they're giving you a time, typically it's going to be in the time zone that they're in. You can always clarify if they don't say central. It's okay to clarify things and say, okay, is that central time if they don't specify, but you can basically assume that they're talking about their own time zone. Some people will not give you a second chance, and I've had some really great applicants. I do give a second chance for this, and I've had some really amazing applicants mess up the time zone thing, and they were fortunate that we overlooked that, because it'd be terrible for someone who's really well qualified to be overlooked because they mess up something simple like a time zone. Okay. When we're working in the clinic, we work with patients a lot. We want to be able to build rapport with patients and make them feel comfortable. So part of a Skype interview is not just to show your knowledge of the field and that you're a good fit for the program and that you're qualified, but also that you have a congenial personality that will be easy to work with as a student and will be, good with patients and good at developing good bedside manner and things like that. So you want to try to be relaxed. I know it's easy to get nervous, but smile, show your friendly side, keep it professional, but try to show some warmth in the interview too, so that the clinicians will be confident that you're going to make patients feel comfortable. Okay, so those are just my quick tips for applying to clinical programs. If you have any questions specifically, if you're a nutrition student, feel free to email me and I will get back to you. Thanks. Bye-bye.